Hello, I'm Chef Mark Dowling, Corporate Executive Chef with Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. We're very honored to be broadcasting into your class period today, particularly with our partners in the culinary schools, FCCLA partners, and ProStart faculty and staff. Thanks very much for your foresight and dedication and commitment to having us broadcast to you on demand subjects that you need for your class and for your students. We're excited to do that for you each day. At any time during our webcast, feel free to ask questions, put them in the chat, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Now, with the Auguste Escoffier schools, we have three options for attending. Brick and mortar, Austin, Texas. The other brick and mortar or college campus is in Boulder, Colorado. And of course, our online program, escoffieronline.com. What's unique about our culinary schools is we're the only culinary school in North America that has a 3-week farm-to-table component. So you, the student, spend 3 weeks on farms with ranchers, vineyards, farmers. It's really very exciting. Vegetable, fruit growers, orchards. It's really wonderful. You're really going to enjoy that. So our online culinary program is self-paced. So you can take your time doing that, and that's separate, of course. That's online. And for information, please take a look at myculinaryfuture.com. Auguste Escoffier was known as the father of modern cuisine, and his influence is seen at all levels of culinary today. I would like now to show a 10-minute video on his legacy. When we come back, we will do our interactive demo. So enjoy the video. See you when you come back.
Welcome to the Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. The culinary field is a fast-moving world where skill, passion, and a zeal for perfection all intersect. It's not for everyone, but for those savoring a truly extraordinary career or is an enthusiast, the experience can be life-changing. At the Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts, our promise to provide you with the most professional training begins with the name in our name, Auguste Escoffier, the father of modern cookery. This French chef, who lived at the turn of the last century, is on par with Edison and Einstein in the transformative influence he had in his field. Escoffier, with his methods, techniques, and recipes, revolutionized the culinary world. His influence is not only infused into everything we do at the Escoffier School, but still guides some of the most celebrated chefs today.
I think that Auguste Escoffier is really sort of the backbone to almost everything we do as chefs.
Before him, the modern restaurant as we think of it today didn't exist.
And Escoffier, to me, means so much because everything that I do on a daily basis, he was the person that set that in motion.
He was a genius in cooking at the time. He was a visionary. He was a great communicator. He touched the lives of both rich and poor with his warmth and artistry.
Escoffier could be likened to Steve Jobs. He may have been the Steve Jobs of his era.
For the culinary world, Escoffier is, I mean, he's the big guy. He's the, if we had to put a face on the Mount Rushmore of food, that would be him. You know, he's the president. He's the George Washington, whatever you want to think of it. He's that guy for the food world.
In 1846, Auguste Escoffier was born in the French village of Villeneuve-Loubet, where the Escoffier Foundation and Museum exists today in his childhood home. While he showed promise as an artist, his true talent became apparent when he apprenticed at his uncle's restaurant in Nice. At that time, cooking was not a profession held in high regard. It was a hot, thankless job, rife with uncleanliness and disorder. And so it might have stayed, if not for Escoffier. After a stint as an army chef, he reorganized the kitchen into a military-like brigade system with a clear chain of command headed by supervisors overseeing workers with specific duties in specific locations.
It's basically an army tackling the jobs, and he's the one that kind of said, hey, here's the general, here's the privates, you know, go at it.
There's a lot of things in the kitchen that I think people don't even realize are in place because of Escoffier. You know, the fact that we have a system where there's a chef de cuisine and a sous chef under that and chef de parties under that, kind of the hierarchy of the kitchen and its staff is really because of him.
He was very, very concerned with the atmosphere in his kitchen. He brought pride to the profession. He stressed the importance to run a clean, hygienic, and safe kitchen. We talk about sanitation in today's kitchen. He was well ahead of his time. He believed that well-trained chefs produce truly exceptional food.
In 1890, Escoffier worked with Cesar Ritz of the famous Ritz-Carlton brand. With Ritz, Escoffier transformed the new Savoy Hotel in London into the place to be seen and experience culinary excellence. The pair would eventually move on to manage the Ritz Hotel in Paris and the Carlton Hotel in London, each time with growing success. Escoffier made many innovations at these hotels and changed the way food was served at the table.
He abolished the system where all the food came out all at the same time. And he created service like we do now, which is the food comes out as the guests requested in the order in which it should be eaten. He created that. And I think that that's important to note, that not only was he a culinarian, his influence spread to the front of the house.
He invented countless new dishes, often inspired by guests of the hotels.
I love the fact that Escoffier, when Dame Nellie Melba came, the opera singer, he designed a dessert just for her, which is peach Melba, of course. And then 5 years later, he invents Melba toast. So the idea that some of these recipes he's created are, you know, they're in our lexicon of culinary language now.
Escoffier was also the first chef to organize the kitchens of the luxury transatlantic ocean liners of Europe. On several occasions, he was also asked to plan events and cook for kings and queens. He was fascinated by food science, particularly methods of food preservation. He pioneered the practice of canning tomatoes, helped develop the bouillon cube, and created his own series of bottled sauces and pickles.
Escoffier, to me, is the father of modern cooking. As crazy as we can get with food today, I mean, if you look at molecular gastronomy or the different food movements that are going on in this industry, are the ones who are using Escoffier as a base.
And he held exceedingly modern views in appreciating the symbiotic relationship between food supplier and kitchen.
Escoffier was, by far, an innovator. Today, our focus, you hear a lot of that, we hear that with the Escoffier School. Farm to table, sustainable agriculture, utilizing natural, wholesome ingredients. Well, Escoffier believed in that back then. He was getting asparagus from France, from the source, from the farmer, from the people that were producing those asparagus. So he had already that in mind. He was way ahead of his time.
And he was prolific. He authored over 5,000 recipes in his 8 landmark books, some of which are still published today. Le Guide Culinaire is today considered the Bible of classic cuisine.
Escoffier wrote and documented all these thousands of recipes in one snippet of time in the world of cooking. But he was smart enough to know that time changes and people's tastes change. And he allows for so much flexibility in his food and his recipes. So he had a real vision of what food was at the time that he wrote it, but what food could be with some evolution.
But Escoffier didn't just focus on food, but also on the social concerns of people inside and outside his kitchens.
His mantra is that you started every day fresh. So he gave all his food to charities, to the poor, and paid for it to be transported. And he was the first humanitarian. He was the first one to understand that cooks get injured, cooks are retiring, chefs. He felt a connection to them. And I think that in this day and age is pretty remarkable.
Escoffier died on February 12, 1935, earning the moniker King of Chefs and Chef of Kings. His influence was substantial then and continues to live on.
I have the honor to be the president of the Disciple Escoffier International USA. It's a premier gastronomic society that was established in France in 1954 to maintain the good name and tradition of French cuisine. And of course, their goal is very simple, to honor the memory of Escoffier in France and around the world, to promote and preserve his work, to maintain tradition, because it's very important to maintain the tradition, and to promote culinary education and apprenticeship to young people and to motivate them to become professional chefs.
If I could describe Escoffier in one word, it would be foundation. So to me, he's the foundation of cooking. There's a lot of historical relevance to what he's done, but he's still relevant to me today, and I use his cookbooks and some of his ideals every single day.
To say that he's the father of modern cooking, I think, is almost an understatement.
Escoffier means a lot of different things, but first and foremost, inspiration.
The base where all modern cuisine that we do now comes from is what Escoffier was doing 100 years ago.
That foundation of being a chef, how to act, the setups in the kitchen, even being inspired by the food of the land and seasons and things like that. You know, all of that is reference to Escoffier and how he cooked back in the day.
We are proud to work with the Escoffier Foundation and Museum and Michel Escoffier, great-grandson of Auguste Escoffier and a member of our advisory board, to continue this legacy of excellence. We welcome you to our school in the spirit of Escoffier and sincerely hope you take the next step and become part of something bigger than yourself.
Hi and welcome. I'm Chef Mark Dowling, corporate chef with Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Today we're preparing Central American specialties. I recently did a trip to Nicaragua and Central America. We'll be making a few items. The first item is pupusas, pupusa San Salvador. And the pupusa is actually flour, corn flour, known as masa harina, which is yellow corn which has been dried and then cooked, and then dried again and made into a flour. So it's corn flour. I like to use, a good brand is Bob's Red Mill, makes a nice masa harina. What you do is, if it was 3 cups of flour, you take 3.5 cups of corn flour, masa harina, and with 1.5 cups of water, you make a dough. Let that rest about 15 minutes. The important part about the dough for pupusa San Salvador is the fact that when you press the dough, it doesn't crack around the outside. So it's one of those texture things, right? By hand and eye. So I add a little more water because it was cracking a little bit. So to make that, I made the masa dough, a big ball of dough, rested 15 minutes, and then I broke it up into 6 pieces, and now have 6 pupusas, like a papus, the Spanish Indian word for something goes inside. So your baby would be in a papus. So this has a filling too. And I added some salt and pepper to this mixture. There are 3 kinds of papusas in El Salvador. You can use one with chicharrón, which is ground cooked pork. You can do papusa con queso, which I have here today. I'm doing one with cheese. I have a grated cheese, a white cheese. I also put in some smoked paprika, so it'll give it a nice flavor. So it takes a while to figure out how to manipulate this, right, into a little papoose. It really is like a pocket. I have a little water handy to help me. A little water handy to help me gather this together because you want this to seal. So the water helps extend and seal. You can see how important it is that the dough not be too dry. If it is, you have to get the dough back into a bowl and add some water. And what's nice about corn flour is its structure allows you to almost, like silly putty or clay, it'll seal where a Chinese pork bao dough would not. So you can completely seal that. Oh, as I was saying, the chicharron is cooked pork. They would roast the pork and then shred it and put it in the food processor, fill up your papusas with that. That's called papusa al chicharron. There's also this one, papusa con queso. And then the other one is papusa con frijoles, which you would use refried beans. So the El Salvadorians make sure it's about a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch thick. Now, some parts of Central America make it really flat. Also, this is known in other parts of Central America as an arepas. So now that we made our papusas con queso, you see the thickness of the papusa or arepas is important. Olive oil, cast iron griddle works very well for this process. I don't have one handy, but this very flat, thick bottom brazier is just what I need. So they don't need to be on too high because the filling does have to melt inside the masa harina. Of course, you probably know some folks in Central America, Guatemalans, particularly during Christmas, like to make the tamal. The tamales are very nice. I like them with pork and olives. And the tamales can be wrapped in banana leaf or the corn husk, depends on what part of Central America you are. So this has a great flavor, which I really enjoy. So we'll let those brown now before we turn them over. So we're back here, our papusas San Salvador already. You can see how nice they came out, nice golden color. We cooked them in the griddle. It'll be nice, right? But certainly a flat skillet, heavy bottom skillet works well. These are the papusas con queso with cheese. There was the one I mentioned, papusas con frijoles with beans, refried beans, actually packed inside as I showed you, or papusas con chicharron with pork meat. But if you like all three, they're known as papusa revueltas, means combinations. So they put cheese and bean and pork inside. They're very tasty. As I mentioned before, some countries make it a little flatter. The traditional size like this is in El Salvador. They serve cortido with it. Cortido is like a sauerkraut. It's a pickled cabbage. And they always also serve with it salsa rojo, which is a very thin red sauce, different than the salsa rojo you would see northern above El Salvador, which would be Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico. So I know you're going to enjoy making that dish, and so bon appetit. So here we have our second segment for our Central American dishes today. Again, I recently visited Central America and went to Managua and Granada, Nicaragua. And what was nice about there was the seafood stews that they have, knowing that Nicaragua has both the Gulf of Mexico coast and the Pacific Ocean coast. Their main export is lobster tails. So we had lots of lobster, shrimp, and clams and crab meat, so it was really beautiful. So I'm making the stew that we had there one day. And what they use, of course, the influence in Central America, Mesoamerica way back is corn. So pieces of corn that size, cut and round. Then they had chayote or alligator pear or mirliton, chayote squash that also was in the soup, a nice big carrot, which is wonderful, and some onion. And it's in just some water. But to make good seafood stew, to give it flavor, and obviously those Spanish and French influence in Nicaragua, they speak Spanish, is the Spanish saffron, azafrano, or saffron in French or English, known as saffron. And those are, you can see, they're very tiny threads. You can see that. It's the stamen of a crocus, which is harvested in the spring in parts of Spain now, and mostly in the Middle East and Pakistan now, large producer of saffron. It gives a beautiful color, as in the saffron robes you may see in India and in Pakistan, and gives it that very unique Spanish, Mid-Eastern flavor. And what a great taste saffron gives to of this seafood stew. So I brought that to a boil. I put in the vegetables in the proper order so they're all nice and tender but well cooked. Now that it's simmering, has a nice color, add some nice prawns and some beautiful shrimp. I'm going to add to that, but I'm going to devein them first. So I have some nice shrimps I'm going to add to that, but I'm going to devein them first. So you want to cut along the vein, along this side here, right? That's important. These are 20 shrimp, which means there are 16 or 20 shrimp per count. And a lot of people like to say prawns, and prawns are used, a term used a lot. Prawns and shrimp are interchangeable terms for the same item, though I guess in the U.S. many times people think prawns is something that's much larger. Of course, scampi is also a term which means shrimp. So shrimp scampi, shrimp. So you'll want to remove the vein. I like to keep the shell and the shellfish, I find it doesn't overcook. So any intestinal tract in there, there's one here, see that? That's important to pull that out, right? So that we take out. We don't want that in there if we don't have to. Let's check this one, small one as well. Removing that intestinal process. And this final one here as well. Taking that out. And now we'll give the shrimps a little wash. So we wash the shrimps, now they're clean. You want to add the seafood in order of how it will cook. I have shrimp, some large sea scallops, some squid, snow crab, and tomato. So let's add the shrimp in first. It's going to cook very quickly. Shrimp cooks very quickly. Let's add the large scallops. You can cut them in half. Let's cut them in half so we get more portions for our guests. This can serve 4. Let's stir that up. So it's a seafood stew, which means the pieces are larger than a soup, which means a little smaller. Let's add some diced tomato to that. It's smelling wonderful already. So let's baste the scallops so that it cooks. So seafood is very tender. It doesn't take too long to cook it. Let's add the squid, which I took the squid tube, right? Usually shaped this way, and I butterflied it, and I made X marks, cross-hatch marks, or like a hashtag mark, right? I'm going to put those in there as well, along with the tentacles. Look at that. That's a little squid there. We put the squid in there. Let's baste those now as well. Making a seafood stew, it's important to make the broth first, especially in this Nicaraguan style. Nice broth first. And then add your seafood, and of course, snow crab's already cooked, so we just have to heat up the snow crab. Add that to that, let that simmer. And again, we're basting with these. See how nice the scallops, the nice look they take the scallops. And of course, I always like the appearance of the squid, as you can see here. The squid now looks like a honeycomb from the cross hash marks we put onto them. So we're going to stir that up. We'll want to taste it while it's simmering. We want to taste it, adjust for seasoning. Well, that's really good, but it actually needs just a little salt. Well, not for salty's sake, but to pick up the flavor, give it savoriness. So the seafood is done. And that means that lovely Nicaraguan seafood stew is done. Also, this is popular throughout Central America. They make one called Sancocho del Peru, which is very popular as well, of course, Peruvian style. But that's beautiful. Look at that, how nice that is. And the crab meat. Now, if you're luxurious, have a large budget, lobster is nice as well. The spiny lobster is the one that is exported from Nicaragua, so that's very beautiful. And you can serve a little Spanish bread with that, right? So there you go. Nice to have you. Nice to have you here today. It's a very beautiful looking Nicaraguan seafood stew. I want you to enjoy that, and bon appetit. I know you enjoyed our demo today in our Escoffier lesson. For your class period, we offer many scholarships to high school seniors throughout the year, so please remember to go to myculinaryfuture.com to download a free guide, school guide. Also can request information about our recipes and the school itself. It was great to have you here today. Thanks for your questions, and you have a great school day and a great school year. Bye-bye.